Ripple is a central bank and XRP is a world reserve currency. It might be an oversimplified way of looking at the relationship between the company Ripple and the digital asset XRP, but to me, I'm going to read off this definition for you. It meets the definition perfectly, and I think it's a great way for new people that are trying to understand what is Ripple, what is XRP. When you put it in that context, I think that it makes sense and it makes it easy for new people to understand what's really going on here. We know that we've been battling FUD and misinformation against XRP for years. And if you go back, the first piece of XRP content that I ever put out, I was comparing Ripple to a central bank. And I noted that we can't compare them to just one country's central bank because XRP is a worldwide currency. It's a worldwide decentralized and distributed ledger, right? So we can't compare them to just one nation's central bank. They need to be compared to the the central bank for central banks, more like a BIS or IMF would be a better comparison. And then I go on to say that XRP is similar to a world reserve currency because it's used as a store of value and a medium of exchange, which is literally the definition of a world reserve currency. Now, is it being used as a world reserve currency at scale? Well, not yet, but at the current trajectory, we're on pace to see XRP, surpassing probably 10, 20, 30 million wallets in just the next 12 to 24 months. So just a fraction of the world's population is into XRP so far, but you already have millions of people that are treating XRP like a reserve currency. Other institutions are now starting to come in and treat XRP like a reserve, putting it on their treasury balance sheet. And so as this accelerates, the opportunity is getting in and treating XRP like a reserve before everybody else does, right? Now, the only other currency that's even in this realm of conversation would be Bitcoin. It is being treated as a reserve, but it has no utility and it doesn't have any main company driving and spearheading the development of the ecosystem like Ripple does for XRP. Now, here's the definition and role of what a central bank does. A central bank's primary role is to oversee and manage a nation's monetary policy and financial system. So basically, Ripple is overseeing and managing the monetary policy or the supply of XRP and how that's being distributed from the escrow. And they're overseeing the financial system, along with all of the other validators, developers, and engineers that are working on the code. But Ripple has been spearheading the effort, right? So a central bank's primary role is to oversee and manage a nation's monetary and financial system, monetary policy and financial system. This includes implementing monetary policy, regulating banks, and providing financial services, ultimately aiming for economic stability, currency stability, low unemployment, and price stability. So obviously, Ripple is not doing anything in regards to regulating other banks. They are not addressing employment, right? So in that way, you can't compare them to a central bank. But when it comes to monetary policy and a financial system, that's exactly what Ripple is doing. Now, when it comes to a world reserve currency, a world reserve currency is used as a medium of exchange and it's used as a store of value. That's what makes it a reserve. Many currencies are used as a medium of exchange, but not used as a store of value. And that's why many of the other national currencies around the world are not reserve currencies. Yes, they're being used as medium of exchanges within their jurisdictions, but they're not a store of value. Now, what's interesting about the relationship between Ripple and XRP is that yes, Ripple has a control of the XRP supply, the tokens, but the network itself is completely decentralized. Ripple is only one of 35 validators that determine consensus and validation of the XRP ledger. Basically, the XRP ledger sees forward progress when basically 80% of those 35 validators come to a consensus. Ripple only has one of those votes. So the XRP ledger itself is completely decentralized. The supply of XRP, you could make the case in the argument that it is centralized because Ripple has so much of it. But as I've been describing, they are responsible custodians of the reserve currency. They are distributing XRP to their partners who are using XRP for its utility. And they're doing so in a responsible way. They're not just giving XRP away and basically selling it off into the hands of their partners who are going to turn around and dump XRP. That's not happening, right? And so you want to oversee and manage a nation's monetary policy. Well, they're overseeing and managing XRP's monetary policy, and that's in regards of the supply that is being released from the escrow, Ripple has been basically keeping about 20 to 30% of the escrow every month, which is about 2 to 300 million XRP. They've been putting that into their flows of on-demand liquidity. They've been using that for other utilities. And then about 70 to 80% of that, 700 to 800 million of that XRP gets returned back to the escrow every single month. And I think that this is a responsible way. I think it's healthy, the relationship and the distribution that's taking place right now. And the fact that the XRP is only being sold off to their institutional partners. There is not XRP that's being sold off to the exchanges where basically it gets dumped onto the hands of retail and me and you, Joe Blow, have to buy up all this XRP supply. We don't need to buy up this XRP. In fact, we don't even have access to buy this XRP. And that's why it's one of the stupidest things when people say that Ripple's dumping on us. We don't have access to the XRP that Ripple is selling. Only their institutional partners do. So it's one of the dumbest things to say that Ripple's dumping on us when we don't have the ability to even buy the XRP that Ripple's selling. And so, in conclusion, for new people that are trying to understand this, I think that we can tell them that Ripple is basically the central bank, the custodian in control of XRP supply, but the XRP ledger itself is completely decentralized. It's a similar network to Bitcoin, where we're moving value seamlessly over to distributed ledger technology. And it's done so in a much more efficient way than Bitcoin and many other ledgers as well, too. So without getting into all the technicalities, without getting into all the nuance, and without getting into, how the ledger functions on a deeper level, you can just simply tell folks, hey, XRP is a better version of Bitcoin. Very simply put, it's decentralized peer-to-peer movement of value over a distributed ledger technology. XRP is the reserve currency and the neutral bridge asset for this ledger. And basically, we have people around the world, we have institutions, banks, governments now using the XRP ledger and also storing XRP on their balance sheet as a reserve currency. So, in the most simple definitions and understanding of what this is, Ripple is the central bank, XRP is the reserve currency, and everything that Ripple is doing is to drive value to the XRP ledger, which will inherently increase the price of XRP. At one point, Brad Garlinghouse has been quoted to say, XRP is the heartbeat of Ripple. No, RLUSD is not a replacement for XRP. RLUSD has an issuer, which is a counterparty, although we trust Ripple, that they are the issuer and counterparty behind RLUSD, whereas there is no issuer of XRP, there is no counterparty when you hold your own XRP. So that's why we say, know what you hold, understand the value that's being brought to the XRP ledger. We're about to see our DeFi ecosystem blossom after this year and the new amendments that are being brought to the XRP ledger. But on the most basic level, we can just understand this as Ripple being the central bank, XRP being the world reserve currency. And yeah, you might want to stack a few, but I'm not here to give you financial advice. I do hope you appreciate the content though. If you do, make sure we're liking this video. Help us out by sharing it out far and wide. And I will see you guys in the next one. God bless you all.